Well, you know what I'm excited about, y'all?
What?
Our first news item of the day. Of the
Okay.
evening. Thanks, Brian.
Sorry.
You guys heard last week that Rick Osterloh has a new job.
Oh, no.
The former president of Motorola now has a new job at Google campus, running its new hardware division. Is that not really exciting?
He just couldn't stay away, could he?
He just couldn't stay away. I mean, I imagine he was like ready to just get back into the saddle right after Motorola. Just has more things to do. His job is not complete.
Now, Flo, you were on Osterloh watch after he left Motorola. Are you invigorated now that he's joined Google to run the hardware division? Or
I am very invigorated. So he's not only running the Nexus program, he's also going to be running the Chromebooks. He's going to be running the Google Living Room products that are coming out. He is going to be running OnHub. Well, I guess OnHub. Does that count as a living room?
Well,
or is that
it might.
its own thing?
I don't know if it officially does, but yeah, right.
Yeah, I guess that's happening when it's happening. He's also going to be running Chromecast and ATAP, which we know just lost their head recently, Regina Dugan, to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be an interesting change of things. Also, Hiroshi Lockheimer will now focus primarily on software and platform development, which is sort of what I kind of assumed that just when I heard this news, because I know there wasn't any immediate news on what Hiroshi would be doing when this was announced. Nest CEO Tony Fadell, he ran Glass after it exited Google X last year, but now he's over at Nest, which is under the Alphabet umbrella, and Osterloh will be taking over what's going on with Google Glass. So that means that we still have a little bit more to hear from this little device that goes on your face.
Mm-hmm. So, Yasmin, I'm curious to know kind of what, like, because Google hasn't necessarily had an official hardware division yet. What do you think this is setting up here? What is Rick going to be? I mean, is he just managing all of these efforts, or what do you think?
Yeah, so when they acquired Motorola, I was really, really excited because I was like, oh no, like finally Google is going to have that hardware division. It's going to be amazing. And then they sold them out, and I was like really bummed because I was a huge fan of the Moto X, and it was actually like the first phone that got me off the Nexus phones because I figured like, hey, I'm still going to get the updates that are like the Nexus program, but they have some really, really fun features with the hardware. So I was really excited, and of course when they left, really bummed out. So I'm excited to see what happens. I really, really hope that they actually start building a lot of their hardware in-house and they have like a more cohesive experience across all their hardware products.
Scott, are you an Osterloh fan? Are you happy to see him return home?
I've never met him, but I think it's a good move for them. I think if the rumors are true about them doing a phone, which I think it's a much bigger effort than a lot of the other products that they're talking about. Like the stuff at home or the Chromebooks. It's a much bigger effort in terms of a marketing perspective. I think it's going to help them be focused on it and actually really drive something forward. So I think if they're really going to do a phone, I think it's a big move.
Interesting. And this sounds like development of hardware outside of kind of the efforts that we're so used to hearing about, which, I'm very curious to see. To me, it felt like homecoming for Rick because, he shined while he was at Google.
Where he started at Google with Motorola, then he went over to Lenovo when Lenovo acquired Motorola. Then they had their whole restructuring and they were like, bye, and now he's back at Google. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually lives in the South Bay, so it makes sense to get a local job.
Yeah.
So one other thing actually that's kind of interesting about that is I think, or at least the question to ask is how the Nexus program transitions. Because traditionally they would partner with OEMs. Like when I was at HTC, we did the tablet, obviously did the Nexus One when I was there. And so I think that's going to be interesting to see if that relationship changes with the ODM or OEMs or whether they become they're going to work with an ODM going forward. So
that's
that happen.
Yeah.
That's the big question. I mean, as we've seen the Pixel C come out, which is a Google product, it's not an OEM kind of situation. Are they going to do hardware proper, or are they going to continue the model that they've been doing? I feel like that's what we've been asking for years now, and I feel like
it's going to be answered pretty soon now that he's there.
That's a really good point, Scott. I actually didn't even think about that when I was writing the news piece about Osterloh going over to Google. It was like, are they gonna just stop going with companies and using them as kind of the front-facing marketing tool for the Nexus devices? Is Google gonna feel, or maybe not feel, but is Google going to go out and just be like, hey, we're on our own, that's it?
Or maybe they do both.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they've been flirting with it for years, right? I mean, Motorola they got a little closer, but then they sold it off, like Yasmin mentioned, and with the Pixel C, got a little closer, but haven't done anything else. I'll be curious to see what they say at I/O, whether or not part of this, announcing Osterloh coming on before I/O and making a big deal about the hardware stuff at I/O will actually kind of show what the plan is.
They've also been converging the industrial design with the OEMs over the years, so they've gotten a little bit closer as a family. So to me, it feels like a logical step because there's been enough rumoring about it. Now that you have Osterloh there, it just seems, well, let's see what happens.
Right.
I think they'd have to be very careful on how they maneuver with that, though, right? Because they're really pushing their marketing of be together, not the same, and so they don't want to turn into, hey, here's the one phone for you. They want to kind of have Android on various hardware to run. So. I would be excited because that means that they get to control the hardware and software experience, which just means it's going to be a better phone. But it is kind of fun, with the Nexus 6P, kind of introduced us to Huawei, and they're oh wow, I really like their hardware. So it'll be definitely interesting to see what gets announced at I/O.
And the only other comment I have on it is that, and Scott, you could probably address this better than I could, but isn't manufacturing devices really hard?
Well, so they're not going to be making devices. They'll work with an ODM.
Yeah. But the whole chain, the whole supply chain, and doing everything, that's a whole effort that like I said, they flirted with, but actually committing to, I think, is harder than we might think. That's all.
So I agree.
They hired a dude who has plenty of history doing all that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. I mean, I think the operation side, just dealing with forward and reverse logistics, all that, it's super complicated. And actually, it's not that hard. It's just it requires a lot of attention from people. It'll be interesting to see if they're building that side up too, not just the engineering side, which obviously I think Osterloh's that's his background.
Well, I think a great example of this is, it's not phones, but look at all the trouble that Facebook is having with Oculus.
Right.
I don't know if you're keeping an eye on it, but it's a shipping nightmare. They're going to retail before Kickstarter backers and before pre-orders ship.
Yeah, and we had similar. Just to be honest, with Nextbit, we had similar problems where it just took us a long time to kind of get Kickstarter orders delivered, and it's mundane stuff like trying to get order information out of Kickstarter and backer kit, which is how you take you add in accessories afterwards, and how to get those into our 3PL, which is the people that actually pick, pack, and ship. And it's super. It's not that hard, right? It's just a simple spreadsheet, but you get in there and something gets coughed out as you try to import it in. Now you're importing 10,000 line items one by one. And so these little things on the operational side can make or break. And I think that's what you're seeing with Facebook. And they're a big company, right? How are they having problems? But the scale of their problem is obviously much bigger than what Nextbit had. But having been through it, you can see it.
For sure.
You can see it happening.